Hello, and welcome to this lecture on search engine optimization. Some specific things that you should learn while going through this chapter include knowing what SEO or search engine optimization is, how a website needs to be structured in order to take advantage of those search engines and how they go out and search your site and index your site. Understand some key phrases that are used so that if you're discussing this with someone or if you're having someone do a website for you, that you can converse with them and they understand what you're talking about and you understand what they're talking about. We also want to emphasize how your links that you put into a website are very important in terms of giving your site credibility, which then allows it to get ranked higher by the search engine. So, some things that a search engine looks for when it examines your website is how relevant the site is based on the title of the page, the content that's there, and then how that matches up with what the users are looking for. And so then it gives it an index of importance. That can be how the links actually work. Um, you can also look at how popular your site is, how many times people have come there. So they can gauge that. If people are looking for a certain item and they always come to your site, then that's going to give it a higher ranking than other sites. Then they do some kind of test to see how trusting or a trust kind of factor that your site might have. Is it reliable? Is it something that's going to produce the same thing every time? It doesn't change. It's not tricking people into coming to this site and then sending them to some other site that has nothing to do with the original site. So exactly how search engine optimization works, it's for the organic portion of the search results. And what I mean by organic is that when someone types in what they're looking for, then if there's no paid interaction between the search engine site and the actual website that gets listed, those are the organic sites. And so you want to optimize that website so you can get the highest ranking or listing on the page that you can. And the way you do that is by making sure that you're using HTML appropriately. So that's the code, making sure the content matches up with, maybe you've got some meta tags. Those are tags that go in a certain portion of the HTML file that relate to keywords and description. And then the search engine spider or bot will look at that and see how well that conforms to what actual content you have inside your website. And then also it looks at your website structure to see if that's properly done, and that'll give you a higher ranking. There's also some off-page factors that the bot looks at, and what that means is, are there other sites that link to your site that gives your site credibility, especially if they're related? And what I mean by related is that, let's say you're coming from a site that deals with Civil War items and they give you a link to your site. Well, does your site also contain things about Civil War items? If so, then that's going to get a higher ranking than something that doesn't even relate to your two sites. And so the more links that are appropriate, that are built to your site, that's going to give it a higher ranking value. So you want to do those as well. Now you need to be careful that you don't do things that try and trick the search engine, because that can cause a flag to go up and then you could get banned from that search engine. I've heard stories where people will go out and build 50 sites that link to the main site that they're creating in order just to get that search engine to give them more credibility. If they find out you're doing that sort of stuff, they'll flag you and kick you out of their results page altogether. So as you can see here, having those links to your site is a good way to build your business. And you always have to be thinking about, how does a search engine see your site? How does it think about ranking it? If there's something new that the search engine algorithm is going to use, you need to be aware of that and include that in your website's code or how other people connect to your site. So your book breaks down the search engine optimization into 5 areas that we'll be talking about. So again, the actual structure. Are there certain key phrases that keep coming up over and over again? Is the content optimized for those key phrases? And what I mean by key phrases, we'll talk some more, and hopefully I'll show you an example, is you can go out there and look for certain words that people want to use in their website that have more searched rankings than other words. So, systems management versus management by itself. Which one's going to give you more searches having been done on those words? And so what you want to do is try and choose those words that people have done more searches on than other words that kind of are obscure and people aren't using and they're not found in websites. It'd be harder to find you if you're using those kind of words or key phrases. You also need to keep in mind that when that search engine is working, that is, that bot or spider's looking at your site, what are some problems that may occur? One is that you maybe have done something wrong with your code that prevents the search engine from actually evaluating or assessing your content. Now, there are times when you may not want them to assess their content. You can actually put code on your page that tells a bot not to index or evaluate that page so that it won't show up in a listing or ranking on a search engine. Another thing is that your competitors are going to want to use and are doing the same sort of things you're doing in order to increase their rankings in the search engine results page. And so you need to be aware of what they're doing, how are they achieving that ranking, especially if they're above you. Then you need to say, okay, what is it about them that got them a higher ranking than your website? So you may need to go back and alter the content or code or something. So when you look at these key phrases that you're looking for, you can look at certain keywords. You might want to look for how often is it searched for, what does your competition look for, if people are pulling up your competition's pages, what kind of keywords are they typing in to get it, how easy is it to convert, and that value of that conversion. If they're actually coming to your page, then am I going to convert them into something that I want them to do? So then the question is where do you come up with these keywords? What are the words you use? And so one is you can brainstorm with other people. What are some keywords that might describe whatever your page is or your site is? Like if I wanted to increase people coming into Western site to look for systems management, what are some other keywords that they might be typing in order to find my degree program? I might want to survey the students or people that use the site and say, okay, how did you find the site? What were the key things that you look for? What is it that you want to find when you're looking for this program? You can also use different kinds of research tools that are out there that'll help you look up what a keyword is and give you some of that information that we talked about on the previous slide. That is, how many times was it searched for, those sort of values. So here's an example of what you would use or see in order to find out what keywords you might be using and what works and what doesn't. So let's say you're doing a hotel and you're looking for, if people type in the keyword hotel versus luxury hotels, how often is that done? So that would give you your search volume. In terms of your competition, what works for them on their sites, and then you can think about, okay, how much does that convert for me in order to actually make a sale? So then of that, how much is that value of that percentage lead for me? And so it might be of your total number of people that come into the site. And so that's just part of the types of metrics that you would use in order to show whether this was working or not, and whether the keywords were working. And so you could actually run experiments and try different keywords for a while, and then see how well it works. And now some experiments might be, let's say you have two home pages where people will land on. Well, you could have it set up so that a different uh, home page could be randomly picked, or every other customer gets shown to them, and then you could change the words on them on those pages and see if there's some sort of increased conversion based on the different types of words or advertising that you're doing on a different home page or not. Listed on the screen here is one place that you could go to look at keywords and look those up. And I just wanted to point this out to you, that make it, if you do a website and you want to look up these keywords, you can do this by going to a place like this. So this is a Google rank checker. We can scroll down through there. It can show you, what keywords you were looking at and so on. And you can read more about that, how it works. You actually need to register and download something to your local computer. But see, here are some of the things that can give you help with. You can track your keywords daily, what people are using to come into your site, if the keywords are working, and so you want to make those match up with the search engine so you get a higher ranking. And so we'll continue on then. So if we go back to one of our first slides, we said that you have to have certain key phrases that match with what users are wanting. And so your site needs to be relevant. Right? So that is, does it provide the information to visitors that they're looking for? Does it engage with them? To engage with them, you're going to probably have to have some call to actions. And what that means is you'll have buttons that if they press, they may be links or go to forms in order for them either to fill out something or to download something. So you really want this interaction to be a way that you convince them to do what you want. Now, if you're selling something, then you want to convince them to buy something. So you have to get them to actually put something in a shopping cart, and then also go ahead and get through the shopping cart. And so, again, something like Google Analytics can track every step of what the user is doing, and let's say for some reason they get to the shopping cart and they abandon the site, or they abandon the shopping cart. Well, if you get enough of those people doing that, you can actually say, well, somehow, in this second step of the shopping cart, people are leaving, and then you would need to go and look at that and determine, okay, is there something wrong with the website here? Is there something that's confusing the user? Somehow you've got to identify what the problem is and try and fix that to go ahead and get them to do what you want them to do. So as you're looking for these key phrases that you want to have in your content, you want to be looking at, what is your primary key phrase? What's another phrase that's maybe a little lower ranking you want to put into your website, and even a tertiary key phrase, a third level, if you will. Now, those key phrases can be part of your title tag or any kind of heading level tag that you're using inside of your content. Is it also bolded within your content? And so that's the sort of things that the search engine is trying to look for and index and give you a ranking on. Are you using these things? I just mentioned those items, and so you can see those again here. The alt tag, again, when you're doing an image tag, in case somebody's not handicap accessible, let me just rephrase that. If someone has a handicap and they're not actually viewing your page and you have an image that pops up, the alt tag gives them a way to have that read to them depending on the type of browser they're using. So again, you might want to have one of your key phrases as part of that shows up as part of the alt type of tag. So let me step back out here to a web page and explain some of this. Some of you may have never developed a web page. We're going to be looking at developing web pages, but you won't get down to the actual code level. So what I mean by code level, if I do a right click on this, I can come down here and go to view page source. And so that's where we're getting into, alright, here are different tags to show the content on the page. So here's our title. So we have something that deals with keyword. And so that keyword tracker here, that's what shows up here. And so then we're going to look for content later on that deals with keywords and search engine optimization and so on. So we've got that information there. So this header level here, this is where we will put meta tags, where we might have something about a description. Again, you want your description to have something that relates to the content using those keyword phrases and so on. We also have, you can put another meta tag in here for keywords. I don't see it in this particular site. So that's what we mean by the tags and what you're seeing on the slides for this lecture. So the bold tag, which would be a B here, an H1, a header level tag. And those are if you would see inside of your HTML code. And so the URL, that's the actual address that goes across the top. In our example, go back here. This is the URL. You might have http:// in front of that. Okay, we talked about the meta description, meta tags, the link anchor to another page. Right. You also want to use domain names that are related to your site. That'll give you a higher ranking as well. And what I mean by domain name is, so keyword tracker is the domain. That's a domain name. So that's perfect for what this site does. So that would give it a higher ranking. You also want to make sure that the code for your images is optimized, and so you want to give them descriptive file names that represent what the image is about. Specify those alt tags, any kind of relevant meta information about those and so on. Right? You want to keep everything as relevant and use those key phrases when you're dealing with any kind of links or images within your website. So I'm going to go back to this site here and point out here we have a link. So using the anchor tag href, and then it's going to link to this particular page. This is what the user sees on the screen, and then in the anchor tag with the same name of the element but a slash in front of it. So that's a good way of using that and doing that properly inside of the web page. So I'm going to scroll down and see if I can't find an image tag that would let you see. So here we have an image. So we have image. Here's what the name of the image is and where it's located, but they're not using the alt tag, so that's not very good. That would not get them a high ranking for their bot. Now I scrolled about a bit. Here's another one. Here's an image tag. So it's an image. Then here's the actual image that the user sees on the screen. And this is what we mean by alt. If they had a different kind of reader or couldn't see the graphic for some reason, this is what they would see on the screen. So notice how this is, very descriptive of what they're seeing, and then we have somewhat descriptive of what the actual image contains. So that's what we're talking about in this slide here. Then you have the link. You want to make sure your links are done properly, that the search engine can actually find those websites. So you want to make sure that they're working. If they're not working, you're going to get a lower ranking. If they're actually going to a site that's related to your site, then that's going to signal some kind of more trust, and so that'll give you a higher ranking as well. So what I mean by link is that anchor here. That's a link. So start tracking today. So what the user sees, and they'll actually go to this particular website. So you can see what it does. That's a call to action then. So here's the example that's used in your book. So this is a absolute address because it's using the protocol in front of the actual domain name, then the actual page that comes up, so on. Some other things to keep in mind is that when you're linking to other pages, that some sites then are going to be more trustworthy than others. And some sites may even be so untrustworthy that you get a notice in your browser saying this is an untrustworthy site. Do you really want to go there? And you'll be given the option to go back to where you came from when you clicked on a link. And so the more trustworthy a site is, the higher ranking or indexing you're going to get. So some things that you can do to increase the value of your links is make sure that your content is good, that you're actually doing what you say you're doing in terms of, the title is relevant, keywords are relevant, so on. You want to try and engage your users. I'm not sure, if you want to create games that users want to play, but you want to do something that'll engage them, to keep them on your site, that make them go to the next step of whatever it is that you want them to do. And so it's thinking about those public relations. You also want to think about, okay, what are my competitors doing? Is there something that they're doing that's giving them a higher ranking? Can I do the same? Can I leapfrog them and get better results than them? The last thing to think about is some emerging trends. One is localization, or the geographical presence. So with your IP address, the search engines can tell where you're located, and when you're typing in information, then it's going to bring up information that might be relevant to that geographical localization, or that geographical area. The next trend is this personalized search. So based on your past searches, so it's keeping a history of what you've done, especially if you're keeping your cookies on your machine. If it knows what your language is, maybe it identifies what your gender is, and so on, then the search engine might use that in order to personalize the results of whatever you've searched for, and then also uses that to personalize the type of ads that it might be displaying to you. The next thing that search engines do is to keep track of the usage data. That is, if you've typed in a certain word and then you go to a certain website and you stay on that website for a while, then that search engine is going to rank that higher as being more trustworthy and more about what you were looking for. So that is going to get a higher ranking versus a site that you typed in a certain keyword and you went there and immediately left. Then that tells the search engine that, hey, that site doesn't really contain what that is looking for, and so that's going to give that site a lower ranking in the future when it goes back and recalculates its index algorithm. And the last item, which has been used for some time now, is a real-time search. And so it's going to give things that are more relevant to what's going on in real time, the current time period. And so that ends this chapter. Hopefully you've learned something a little about search engine optimization.